Okay, we're live. I've lost track of the number. I think it's the 41st or 42nd show. I probably should have found out before. Today I have Nadiem von Heydebrand. I hope I pronounced it right, but he'll correct me in a minute. And we're going to talk about the art of creating data impact and tracking ROAI at scale. We'll probably even find out what ROAI is as well. So without further ado, Nadiem, welcome to the show.
Hey, Chris, thank you very much for having me. It's great to see you.
That is good. So I think we met, I think you had a meetup that I failed to make it to, and I think my name was passed around and someone to catch up, and we were fortunate enough to meet up at a subsequent event before I came into your office and saw your product. And I think based on the post I did afterwards, it was only meant to be a short chat, and it went on much longer than we expected, and that was due to us not having anything short to talk about. So so I thought what would be great to have you a guest on this show. It's a topic that's one of my favorites, business value and how we actually evidence the effect the positive effect we perform on businesses. So do you want to give yourself for the audience an introduction and about your company?
Thank you very much, Chris. First of all, thank you very much for having me to your show. I think it's a great format, and it's an honor to be here today. A few words about myself. So my name is Nadiem. I'm born and raised in Munich, Germany, and I studied computer science. So my background is in computer science and engineering, and I started my career over a decade ago as a data scientist, really hands-on. So I was working on customer projects. I also was working in a consultancy back in the days. And my job was really, developing solutions from BI solutions, reports, machine learning models. So the classical way of hands-on, you would call them data science. And then my career grew over time because the company grew and my job shifted away from being a data scientist more to a team lead of data science. And then I was responsible for different accounts and different customers. So you all know how this works, right? You have, you're working on different initiatives over the year, trying to support different problems with customers. And then it took me from classical data science projects into data strategy. So data strategy was a topic back in the days in 2014, 2015, where big organizations started to think about systematically building up these data organizations, data teams, so they called data labs, data units, center of excellences, center of competences, whatever you want to call them. But the core idea was, why not building a team within the organization which takes care of all the data and AI demands the organization has? And this kind of data strategy, I think everyone is aware of that. There are different data strategy frameworks out there. Building the operating models would come from architecture to tools and technologies, to governance. I think data governance is a big topic. And then skills, roles, responsibilities, how you set this all up. So long story short, I was doing a lot of data strategy projects for different major enterprises. And at a certain moment in time, one of these I got a very fair question from one of the CIOs I was reporting back in the days too. He said, Nadiem, now you're building up this team for over 2 years now, and I think you've delivered a lot of data use cases. So when can I expect my return on investment? So when can I expect that all these headcounts we build up, all the budgets we have made free, or everything we've invested, when does this give me a kind of impact on my P&L? And I mean, this question is the $100 million question, especially back in the days in 2018, 19. Still, data science was a little bit like the Wild Wild West from my point of view. And so I think you know that question, right?
Yeah, and I think recognizing that journey and that timeline as well. And I think there was the reason why companies did that knee-jerk reaction and started building these data teams, because they thought, we've got to be data driven, but they really at the board that they didn't quite understand what that really meant. And I think even with just, you can add value to your share price. So you think you're getting value anyway because you've got that data team now or seem to be doing these data science products. But reality, you haven't actually added any tangible benefits that you could then, evidence that you've moved the needle in the right way. I do, and I think, and we'll go on to a bit about how you're solving this in a minute, but now businesses are understanding that your business strategy is what's driving it. Data is supporting that. And I think for a little while it was, I've posted about this, we were creating data graveyards. We were creating the best technology, the best end-to-end architecture, the best governance that no one ever used or no one wanted to use, or you couldn't bring the use cases to that. So it resonates with me there. So
I mean, the question is, Chris, why do we also, I count us into this movement back in the days? Why have we pushed so hard on investing into this topic, although we had very little idea of how we could monetize it or how we could transform it into business value? And the reason, I think, as usual, was a kind of fear of missing out a bit. So and there was this at least for my industry customers here in Europe, it was more like, okay, if we don't invest now, we might lose market competition, we might lose traction, we might lose positioning overall. So we have to become now data driven, and we have to become more AI or like data and AI driven back in the so to be able to stay ahead of the market. And I mean, we've seen a lot of organizations nowadays today reflecting on these decisions, saying, okay, how heavily has my business really shifted? Because if I'm making 99% of my revenues with my core value chain, which is manufacturing, and only 1% I can gain with innovation data, whatever you want to call it, why the hell should I keep it up? There's a huge discussion around that.
Yeah, and so I think I've seen, and I've been banging on about, and we're doing the buzzwords, aren't we, of business value? How many times we're going to say business value? I saw that gap between the business giving the requirements to what they actually need, to the data teams being able to find a solution for those problems. So there's a great first question. It was one of the ones I was gonna add, and it's Romana's asked it. You beat us to it. So what does ROAI stand for? Because we just had this discussion just before, and you are correct, Romana. It is as you say. Do you want to give a background of where that term came from? And
happy to do so. So I have to admit, I haven't invented it. It has been stated before, but I think it summarizes quite nicely how it states for return on AI investments. This is the idea behind that, filling the little A into this term of ROI and making it lean and smooth here. But the idea is really investing into AI initiatives, especially nowadays with Gen AI and all these movements going on now. People are separating general IT investments and investments into AI. But like it's not common knowledge, if you want. So it's more like a marketing buzzword also for us.
You got to have them. That's why the modern data stack exists for a marketing.
Exactly.
That's why the mean data streets exist, because of the same acronym and some marketing that as well from us. But I want to just focus just quickly on this ROI, because it's a term that when we were talking, Matt Housley wrote the book on data engineering with Joe Reese. We were discussing the business value, and ROI kept coming up as, it's just a return on investment. And in old term or old understanding of return on investment, it's money coming in for you invested. So I give you $1, I want $10 back. And I don't think, when we're talking about return on investment from data teams, it's not always as simple as that, is it?
Yeah, I mean, here it comes to the definition of how do you attribute value, and to which activities and efforts do you attribute value. So I keep it rather simple here, or from my point of view nowadays, it's simple. In most organizations, data teams are support functions. So they are not part of the core value chain. The core value chain is, maybe, again, I stick to the idea, you're a manufacturing company and your data and AI team is the support function, just like legal or HR or whatever. The question now is, how do you measure? I mean, could do the same question. I could ask you the same question. How do you measure the return on investment in your HR? So how do you justify the efforts there, and how do you justify the investments that you're putting for your P&L? And I think the difference maybe between an HR department and a data department is that on the one hand side, we have most probably significant bigger budgets going into data and AI, because we have a value generating engine there. They're producing something, they're developing something, they have to take care. So this is also the reason why they are most often part of IT. I mean, IT would have the same question to answer. How do you justify the return on investment in IT if you're not part of the core value chain? And I think the answer, however, how we do this, the answer is we can only activate the returns through the core value chain. So we are just as good as our value contribution to the core value chain is. So if my core value chain is production, in my manufacturing department, in my manufacturing company example, production is part of the core value chain. So I can attribute the value, the added value we generate from data through the support or through the added value the production department is generating with my help. And I think this is the tricky thing. We have indirect value contribution, and this indirect value contribution needs to be, organized, then somehow monitored, and then also tracked.
Yes.
So we need a kind of system to keep overview of all of that stuff.
So a spot on as well. And as you were just talking, I was just making some notes, and yet HR job is a great one because it doesn't add any value. I mean, you could say maybe it helps with staff attrition that could reduce the costs of your hiring, maybe, but then you need the data team to go and work out the how for you. But I think the other difference, and as you highlighted, and it's that disparity in the size of the budgets, because HR will be linear to your staff levels. It's going to be a direct correlation to that. Whereas your AI spend or your data spend is definitely not going to be aligned to your or correlated to with staff. You've got it is going to have many other factors, number of customers, the type of the industry, many other things that will be very hard, and as we know, to quantify the value that each thing does.
I mean, I don't wanna afraid any HR person in the audience now, but I mean, you could also say employee satisfaction, right? So HR is responsible for employee satisfaction. Which impact has employee satisfaction on the productivity of your core value chain? So how more productive is a sales manager if he or she is satisfied thanks to the efforts HR is providing? So same challenge, same question if we come through a different steering metric. And I think this is where then also the key for the how lies a little bit in. How do you steer the metrics, and how do you keep track of the metrics you want to address in the core value chain?
And it's a really interesting, I can't remember, it was a Instagram post or someone of the someone giving their advice on how and how, I think it might be the guy from NVIDIA, but it was, you don't disrupt an industry by investing money in the thing that's really easy to track what you're spending it on. So the reason why people don't invest in marketing as much, for the same reason, it's very hard to attribute, if I didn't spend that money, would I still got the same amount of sales? And I've been in attribution of market is extremely complicated, especially with the changes Google have made to tags and things like that, which you could have understood where you've got a sale from, but it was still very blurred because did it come from the first entry, the second entry? Did they see the billboard that reminded them? I mean, Coca-Cola is a great example. I mean, they spend a fortune on advertising all the time, but they know they don't have to attribute that spend to people buying it. And
you know why that's tricky in comparison, like when you compare the marketing investment attribution and the data investment attribution, because the consumer is outside of the organization. Yeah. The consumer is outside of your ecosystem. Everything has a bridge into the market, whatever the market is. The beauty of our job is, or the beauty in our world of the data world is, our customers, mostly, not always, but in most cases, are internal customers. Yeah. So we can talk to them, we can work with them, we can align with them, we can ask them how we can help. We work in the same company, yeah. So we both have the same company strategy, like in most cases at least.
And I think obviously I've seen your product and seen where it does, so I can in my mind I'm looking at what, but yeah. for the audience and to articulate another gap that I saw out there, which you solve, is good architecture design. Okay, so in large organizations, as you get bigger, as you build at scale, and we're a consultancy company, and we try and help with that, and we do help with that, and we help with that by defining patterns that can be reused. But in our organization, we make sure those patterns work. So if we go to a new client, we can reuse that knowledge that's there. Spotify, when they did, I think we mentioned this when we chatted, they created their backstage. The whole purpose was to show what's out there so people can reuse things. So that's great, that promoting that reuse. But if you don't actually track how much things are reused, you can't actually say, well, from that initial investment of that thing I made, now 5 products are using it. And each of those products are getting the benefit from it. So, yeah, so I think there's one thing defining at a use case what value you can provide by solving the problem. But I think there's then being able to evidence that you've already reused architecture, services, functionality that was defined originally for one project that now can be reused. So your ROAI on that particular item would be dramatically increased as you do that.
Yeah, I mean, Chris, to keep the discussion ongoing in this direction, I think we have to go one step back and discussing what the problem actually was, and then this what solution we've designed. So coming back to my question, the answer for the CIO who asked me what is the return on all these investments was pretty fluffy. So back in the days, I was unsatisfied with my own answer based on that question, and I realized, okay, we have to. So why is it not easy, or why is it so difficult to explain what value contribution data teams have to the core business, and why it is so difficult to explain in easy words to senior executives? Because I mean, I can explain what a model does and what the output of a model is and which accuracy parameter I've used and so on and so forth. But this is not the answer to the question. The question should be super easy to understand and super easy to follow. So this is the reason why we founded Mindfuel. And Mindfuel is a data product management company today. So we have the solution which we have invented, if you want so. And now the question can be, okay, invented, yes or no? It's not about that point. Is we found out that there is a discipline called product management, digital product management, where my co-founder, Max, is one of the greatest product managers I've met in my life. He's one of the best in Europe. I visited him with my frustration and I asked him, and I told him the story, and he said for him it's very, very clear where my problem is. Me as Nadiem, I'm a data guy, I'm an engineer. So I have an engineering mindset and I have no clue about product management. And when I heard about that, I was getting furious how he could tell me that I have no clue about product management. But when I realized what the discipline of product management has in place, best practices, methodologies, the communication metrics and methods and best practices, I realized, okay, we in the data world, we have no clue what it means to build products. We're making one project after the other, we're producing output and send out outcome, and we have no clue how to deal with our customers, which are our stakeholders and internal customers. And so the solution we have designed, very simply said, is a data product management platform, or the discipline of data product management, which helps organizations to build sustainable data products and also keep track and overview of them. And this is now where you said it is. So, and mapping this against the business opportunities in your organization. So our concept at Mindfuel, we have a platform called Delight. Delight is a SaaS application, and it has two major components. Component number A is the opportunity world. So imagine a CRM system with all your opportunities, and we call them business opportunities, and the business opportunities represent the demand from my customers, so the business stakeholders in this case. But instead of forcing them to tell me what their problem is, to avoid a little bit the complaining, we encourage them to formulate the demand in format of an opportunity. So if you, dear data team, could help me, whatever you do, then I believe that this might be a business opportunity because I can slash costs, increase revenues, optimize whatever. So the business case for me would be XYZ. So business opportunities represent the lean business case, if you want so, from my customers and stakeholders. And on the other hand side of the solution, we are keeping track of our data product portfolio. So seeing which products do we have built in the past, and the product is not only a data set, like is in the definition of data manager, like data as a product, but a data product for us is an analytical product, a report, a machine learning model, a dashboard. So this is represented as an analytical product, and of course then also data assets, which are then data sets or data as a products, if you want to stick to this definition, but also technical platforms, so technical assets. And the idea of Delight is mapping your portfolio of your data products against your business opportunities. Because through this mapping, and you have the business lineage in mind, so do I have. So with this view, for the very first time in data history, we can explain to non-data people which contribution, which individual asset, if I keep it very simple, which individual asset has for my core business chain, for my core business value. And I think this is the trick of then when you said, when it comes to adoption, if I have this overview, I can even illustrate and show the product we're having, like the sales dashboard as an analytical product, is not only used for this opportunity for the sales team, but also the marketing team came with a business opportunity, and we try to increase the reuse and the adoption of our sales dashboard to addressing this also against this business opportunity, as this is really the core of product management at heart, if you want. So increase adoption, reusability, all that stuff.
It is, and we try and we try and work that way, but it's very hard to go and evidence it and track it, which is how you solve that. And I'll play back an example now. So you create a framework for doing automatic deployments. Okay, the cost of doing that the first time is for one department. They deploy twice a week, 3 times a week, or they can now. It used to take X many man days to do each deployment. Every 5th deployment, you got a failure, so it took a little bit longer. You had a little bit less customer satisfaction. All right, so it cost me X amount, but it's only saving me this amount per year. It may take 2 years to pay off the investment with just that one project, which then is not a good indicator for you to go and work on that, because it's a long time. But knowing that, this other use case that I've got on my list here, that one could also use it. That one, and they deploy twice a week and 3 times a week. Right, if I'm adding all them up and I suppose it's that force multiplier effect of
Yes.
each of those activities are now serviced by this. I'm going to get return on well, maybe return on deployment investment, but return on infrastructure investment on that particular case in 3 months now. Let's move that higher up the priority list of what we need to work on. And I think that's very hard to do. Well, data people aren't very good at doing that with their thousands of little individual designs, each of them done individually, not actually in any collaboration between them. And there's a lot of reinventing the wheel that goes on. So
yeah, I think what you so perfectly said, Chris. I think the example is also quite nice. When let's assume we would have this overview of what is my demand, however we want to structure this, like from all of my business functions, I'm the CDO of company XYZ. So now I have two perspectives. Number one is I have to understand the demand of all my stakeholders, of all my customers, and on the other hand side, I have to keep track of my portfolio, of the overview of all the use cases implemented in the past and on all the use cases we have to implement in the future. So when I have these two views, then it enables me to take a lot of decisions. Number one is prioritization. Which demand should I prioritize? Because based on the best demand, the bets I'm putting on the opportunities. Because so many stakeholders providing maybe an opportunity, and I have a list of 100 opportunities, but I only have limited resources, both in money and people. So I have to put my bets on the best business opportunities from different stakeholders. So this is the first decision I can take from there. Also deprioritizing the things I don't want to do, or I cannot do, or which are not providing the best added value. And it helps me to communicate this. This is number one. Number two is, what shall I do next in my development? So do I have to build a complete new product because the opportunity we got in, we don't have anything in our portfolio yet to address this business opportunity? Or should I extend an existing product? So let's assume I have a dashboard, but the dashboard needs another view for, I don't know, the regional sales information. Now I have a centralized sales dashboard, but I want to break it down to regions because we want to provide this to different regions in the world. And so the investment to develop now helps me to prioritize the right product roadmap in my portfolio. So doing the right things is such an important principle as a chief data officer, because limited resources, limited time, limited budget. So this is a betting situation here.
It is, and I just want to focus on that CDO role, and linked to the earlier conversation we were talking about everything's all about data strategies, and then we got these CDOs in. The average tenure is normally about 18 months. They move on. Most people I've spoken to, it's because they said they weren't given the remit to succeed, so they didn't have control over things, infrastructure, technology, decisions. So it was really a non-role, in a lot of cases. Having that product focus, and I think there's more of a swing to having either a CPO or maybe a chief data product officer, or a more product focused data role now, where they're going to be working closer on having that more alignment to the business and having that product mentality. So I think that's one lens. I want to link it onto what you're talking about you have this portfolio of projects that are there. And I think what's very useful is going over time, you're going to have projects that have been delivered, and they're going to be in production. And by defining, by that initial what value we think the business think it's going to add, and the definition of how you're going to track the moving of the needle the right direction, and then to go back retrospectively to say, did we or did we not achieve what the metrics
Mm-hmm.
were. Two things that come out of that encourages is better estimating. So at the beginning, you're not going to get some marketing department saying, I'm going to get you 50 times your investment for doing something. They'll probably be a bit, it will encourage people to think more about, any quotes, because they're going to have to live by this later. And then then there is obviously the overhead of making sure you track that, and that's part of a metric internally. And maybe that every product you set up, there's an overhead of making sure you can keep the historical tracking of how it performs. So do you see that as a big part of the problem we've got? Of we've had fails.
Yeah, absolutely. No, absolutely. I think one thing is estimating the so-called value potential in the beginning is one thing. So if I'm sticking to the example, I'm the head of sales and I have a great idea for a new business opportunity. Dear data team, if you could provide me something like a churn model, I know who I would have to call before they churn, and everyone knows that holding an existing customer is much cheaper than gaining or winning a new one. So my business potential or my value potential for this case is, if you can help me providing the data product, a machine learning model for churn prediction, then my value potential is 6 million for the next year. Because I can, this is my assumption for the value potential. So let's assume this example, the head of sales comes around, 6 million value potential, great business case, or great value potential, great assumptions. Now we're delivering the product, the churn model. We are providing a report or a dashboard or whatever, where he or she can see the churners in the next month with the highest probability they should follow up with. And now the question is, how do we make sure that the 6 million in value potential have really materialized? Because this is where the tricky parts then start, right? And so I think, I mean, I would love to do this. I would love to do this automatically, fully seamlessly, but reality is here it starts where we think it's the critical piece. It's the collaboration between business functions and data teams. At this interface, at this intersection, this is where we can really improve in the future. And this is also what our solution should do. It should facilitate this interface, regardless of how we are doing then the tracking and so on and so forth. But still, the mindset that we have to track that, the mindset that we have to follow up these assumptions, and the mindset that we really can only win jointly as a team if we keep track of these assumptions is something where we would like to, where we try to focus on, and where we would try to also create the mindset and mentality to keep track of that.
Yeah, I think it's very important to, and that example you give is a really challenging one, because you've got the other variable of the person. So that salesperson, you could have many other things that happen in his life during that period. That means he doesn't do as well at selling than he thinks he would. But I suppose the churn rate you can actually track of, okay, where we've provided this information, we've reduced churn in those customers by X, whereas historically we were getting a higher number of churn. There's an indication there. But I think you're spot on, is that the thing that it's solving is it's getting the business to talk to the data people, and maybe they're going to get right the first time. Or maybe they go, actually, I know I told you I wanted churn based on this characteristics. I was actually wrong, because they're in an industry that we can't affect the churn. Everyone's moving to something else because of an external factor. I'd like you to then, now that how you sell, can you change it so it does this for me in a different scenario? So just anything that gets the business to understand data more, the data people to understand the business more, and to build up that communication piece. So the engineers, I think I did a post the other day saying that engineers love to engineer, architects love to architect, product managers like to build products that solve customers. Collectively, all of you can create the best architectured, engineered solution that will solve a client's problem. Otherwise,
I think the good thing is, Chris, sorry, is I'm not sure. So I'm 100% sure you experienced when there was a data project and it worked really well. It worked out perfectly. Super great results, super success. The senior leadership team is super happy with the result. So at the end of the day, everyone wins. So we are generating a win-win situation for the business team and for the data team, because the business team says, hey, we worked with the data team. We've been so open-minded. We've been so ahead of our mindset, and now you see we gained this amount of customers, or we saved this amount of costs, or whatever. So also the business side of the house has a very good positioning when it comes to communication to senior leadership team. And I think this is the third dimension we are also keeping heavily in mind, and which I think is super important for my personal view, is communication to senior executive team. Whoever you report to is super important, so that they can also buy in this triangle between business, data, and senior executive leadership team. Because if we don't get their buy-in, if we don't get their commitment, if we don't get, then exactly this happens what you just explained, with the CDOs frustrated after 12 or 18 months or 24 months having to continue their journey. We cannot expect from a CFO. So example, I'm the CDO of XYZ. I'm reporting into the CFO. I cannot expect from my CFO, and please, I don't want to afraid any CFO in the audience today, but we cannot expect from our CFO to fully understand what the data team is doing.
No.
But here's the problem. If a CFO sees a budget line, assumption, by the way, so I haven't proved that, but my assumption is, if a CFO sees the budget line or the cost line item in his budget says marketing, the CFO has an imagination what the money is used for. If the CFO sees the cost line item sales, again, imagination what happens with the item. If the CFO sees data and analytics and sees that this number is maybe 10 times higher than all the other support functions, and we see that AWS invoices, and everyone is asking, okay, why do we need so much money for that? So what is going on with the money here?
And another post or analogy I've used on that one was your CEO's at his boardroom, and he says, I want to go and open up a new product in a new region that we haven't operated before. He'll go to his finance team. He'll understand what needed. Okay, you're gonna have to do intercompany transfers. You're gonna have to do currency conversions. He'll look to his legal department. You go, okay, you're gonna have to look into any law changes for that area as well. He'll go to the data team and he'll say, okay, well, I'm gonna have to get some new data sources in from here. I'm gonna have to do some language changes. I'll probably have to have another region over here. And the CEO will go, oh, can I have a whole plan for that? Because I just don't understand it. And I think the CEOs or the board up until now, they haven't worked with data, or not as many of them have. And organizations maybe like Google and things like that, you've got obviously data savvy people driving those companies, but it's not normal for a CDO to go become a CEO. Most CEOs are ex finance or ex sales. They're the normal route to go into. So and the other thing that I've talked about before, and which you just sort of aligned to, was you as a data department, you need to sell your services. The best sales are your customers. In this case, your customers are the different departments. And if you think of each scenario as a case of law, you need to win that case of law over to give the right evidence to go and get that decision. And once you've, and maybe that's like a civil case or a large case, whereas your judge is your jury on that case. But later on, you're going to ask for so much money, the CEO is going to be looking to all of the other board members or C-suite for their view. You've already solved the finance department, his problem the other day. The marketing department are happy because you delivered for them last month or whatever. You know, your product team are happy because you put some efficiency. So they're all going to support you, and they will help services.
And no, I think you perfectly, Chris. I fully agree. And the only point I wanted to make is, so CFOs are typically super smart, right? Okay, let's take this as a checkpoint. So they are typically super smart, but we cannot expect. So I'm back in my role as a CDO. I can just not expect that the CFO is getting what I'm doing technically in my data department. So if he or she gets it, super good. But it is actually my job as a CDO to enable the senior executive team to, in the most simplest way possible, to explain why the investment into my team, into my organization, into my department is generating value for the company. It's not their job to have to understand it just like because they have ChatGPT in their pocket. So this is definitely not enough. So it turns now the other way around. I would take it as an active. I want to formulate it as a chance. I would formulate it as a chance. Dear CDOs out there, now is the chance, thanks to ChatGPT in the pockets, that we have, with a good communication line and with a straightforward explanation of how we can add value for this company, we have a seat at the table, or we can get a seat at the table where major company decisions are taken. Because C-levels now, CEOs, CFOs, COOs, whoever, they all see the power of AI thanks to ChatGPT. For the very first time, everyone has AI in their pocket. And they had it for years with the iPhone and so on and so forth. But now, if you ask ChatGPT for something, then out of a sudden you realize, okay, AI is crazy. What could AI do for our company as well? So, we hired the CDO a couple of months ago or a couple of years ago. Why don't we talk to him or her discussing the opportunities of AI for our organization? Now, me as a CDO, I can either explain how crazy LLMs work and how important, like what the technicality behind LLMs is, or I come and said, dear Jack, the CFO, I have talked to these 5 business departments, to marketing, to sales, to production and logistics. These are my top 5 business opportunities where I believe, together with them, that we can leverage the company's added value through the help of large language models, whatever large language models are. But here are the 5 business opportunities. We believe in the total value of the business opportunities is 50 million. So I need an investment of 3 million to get the 50.
So, and I'm just thinking out loud when you talk about, everyone wants a large language model. Everyone wants to use the cool stuff now, and we all know that unless you've got all of the right plumbing in place, the right quality checks in there, the right metadata, 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 you're not going to get the right results from it. And if companies, the ones that have done things right and have made those investments, and then they say, by the way, yes, we can put generative AI onto our solution now because we've done all these things. Thank you for trusting us to do all this stuff. Any other company, you're going to try and put it on there, you'll realize that, we got to do this as well. We got to do this as well. The real cost of actually doing this is much higher than we actually thought. And maybe they'll start on that journey while doing all that quality stuff, or re-engineering their data models so that they can actually support machine interface or machine readable activities. So it's going to be it's a challenge. It's been a challenge to actually make companies think about doing all of the foundational stuff before jumping into the generative AI. Got a comment from Val here as well. Hey Val, we missed you at the last meetup, but we'll catch up soon, I'm sure. I mean I think I'll just maybe expand that from back to the CDO's promises. I think it goes back to even the CEO's promises. So it could be on your board. Or sorry, what you put in the shareholder statement, what you're looking to achieve. And sometimes it isn't always directly, but I think what we're describing here is you know, you could have indirect or very indirect. You know, it could be a few layers down of value that it's provided, especially if it's a foundation piece.
Yeah, but I think also when it comes to this statement, it would only work if the results are tangible and can be traced back to the CDO's promise. Not always the case, unfortunately. So my personal opinion on that statement would be fully agree. But the problem why we cannot tracing back to the CDO's promises is unfortunately to a lack of governance and methodology, because we're tracking that stuff in Excel, PowerPoint, Miro, Trello, Confluence. So we have like, this is sometimes why I'm so wondering. We as CDOs, we have full the best of the best of breed technical architectures, tools on the infrastructure level for machine learning, for infrastructure, for governance, like all that stuff. But when it comes to managing all of this, like on the management layer, we are diffusing in tons of different manual processes. And if we don't have a clear transparency and overview of how we track and document, if you want so, the promises, the collaboration statements, the assumptions we took on each case. I mean, everyone out there, I assume, has an Excel spreadsheet with all of their use cases. So I knew this from my career. A big spreadsheet, all the use cases on the lines, and then 80 columns on the right side saying, okay, what is the feasibility? What is the value? Which data goes in there? What is the output? What is the outcome? Who's involved? What are the stakeholders? Who to report to? And then I'm trying to manage my portfolio with all the information in a massive Excel spreadsheet. And then I go, and then I'm extracting the most relevant information in a PowerPoint. And then I go to senior leadership team and try to explain or tell my story. So I think there are new ways to do this. There are different ways to do this. We are providing a solution for that. I can also be very open here at this point. So this is exactly what Delight does. It gives you an overview, a centralized system to keep track of all that stuff. And I think bringing these three personas or groups together, the business, the data team, and the senior leadership team, this unlocks a lot of power when it comes to alignment and communication, prioritization, and also budgeting.
Yeah, and I just think a last thought on your comment about what we've discussed this before. And I know Joe Reese has asked a question of what's the value of putting your socks on, which has been a joke in the past of this. But I think going back to saying, the more you can evidence, the small bits you can't evidence, they don't care. Right? If you've got to prove that you have moved the needle this way, you've increased the sales in the right direction, you've onboarded clients quicker and more accurate with less fraud, right? For that little project that was to do something that helps your data team that you couldn't directly do it, no problem at all. I call it you're putting your socks on tax. You know, you build enough extra revenue from other things that you can directly relate things to, and you know, you can use the rest for a good purpose.
I mean, I had a talk beginning of the year, I think it was. I stated C-leaders are only interested in big opportunities. So this is also a thing I would still repeat on talks. Our job as CDOs is to move the needle significantly. At least this is the expectation. We should identify opportunities where it really has an impact on the organization. Now, the definition of impact is another thing, but I think when we have two opportunities on the table today, and one is driving the business, the core business, by multi-millions, and the other one is saving a few hundred thousand, then there must be a decision made that we either want to go strategically in the cost saving direction, then this opportunity has the higher impact, while we don't believe in the added revenue of multi-millions, or the other way around. So aligning business opportunities with the strategic direction is one thing, and then identifying the most promising business opportunities. And this is what our job is, because also here, business has great ideas, but business sometimes also needs support and help to specify these opportunities, to explain what their demand in regards to data is. And I mean, I'm a computer scientist myself. I studied business and IT. I think this is exactly where I feel comfortable in my role. Also, CDOs out there, I know they have the beauty of understanding both worlds. And I think this is what we should leverage here. We can understand business, we can understand IT, we can communicate to senior leadership. So I think this is what the future should look like, how we can justify, and takes me all the way to the beginning of our conversation.
Yep.
My job is not to just like tell stories. We are not a storyteller. Our job is to justify our existence and trying to explain our value contribution, which is indirect.
Yeah.
We as data teams are doing indirect value contribution to the core business, and this is where it gets tricky.
It is. I got a statement here from Ramona, so just shout out to Ramona. She always tunes in. She comes up with LinkedIn news. What I've seen, she's how much it costs to implement the European AI Act? I mean, the problem with that question is they need to work out what value they're getting from the AI in the first place to take this cost off. So it's going to two aspects, and maybe that's something that should be considered when costing up the effort to do something. But it's something I need to swat up on myself and see what's going on.
I mean, I have my quick 2 cents on this would be implementation of the EU AI Act is actually quite simple, because the Act exists and is a standardized approach and a catalog. So it's an assessment. It's actually, at the end of the day, it's a risk assessment. Deloitte is supporting this risk assessment today already. So you can toggle all your entire data portfolio through this assessment. You take the assessment. At the end of the day, you have a risk overview, which product has which risk assessment, and then you have to take actions from that. And I think the action part is where it gets interesting. So because each action you have to take is associated with costs, just as in classical risk management, it always is. If you want to reduce the risk, you have to invest. If you accept the risk, then everything can stay as it is. So it's the EU Act is just a framework for an overarching risk assessment approach.
That's good. Okay, that's good. And you always seem to be one step ahead with each thing I come up. You say, "Oh yeah, we've got this covered as well." Which I think on the closing topic, I think I just want to talk about. You said about impact earlier, and defining what that impact is. And again, that was something that myself and Matt spent a lot of time talking about when we talk about business value. And I think we talk about this as business value we see as an evidenceable positive impact on your company performance. And impact is the one thing you need to work out what that is, and then what is the company performance you want to change. And I know that you, when I asked the questions when you had the product up, you dealt with a lot of these ones. So do you want to talk about the different sorts of impact types that you were capturing? So there's obviously the value one, but there's other non-revenue related impacts as well.
Yes, absolutely. So there are different perspectives on how to measure or how to discuss the topic of impact. So one direction is we use metrics for this. So the impacts can be represented by so-called steering metrics. So the steering metrics is then a steering metric is a KPI, whatever the KPI is, can be qualitative, can be quantitative. And then the transformation or the increase or decrease, keep it simple, of the KPI represents the impact. So if we're doing something and we have a lagging KPI or a leading KPI, whatever, but a steering metric is changing, then this can be defined as impact. And this can be then measured and can be tracked, and you have to align on the KPIs. So in our idea, not every business opportunity, of course, cannot and will not always have a quantitative impact on the organization. So measuring quantitative impacts on every single use case is very difficult. So we distinguish between quantitative impacts and qualitative impacts based on the steering metrics. So when we have an ESG business opportunity or for whatever, I assume the ESG opportunity will be most probably measured in a qualitative impact steering metric. Because it's very difficult to build the bridge. But this goes all into the discussion of KPI trees and value management and all these topics. It's we can have an own talk about that, an own lecture around that. It's a tricky piece, I think. But this is, let's call it the technical discussion on impact. And this is how tracking and so on and so forth. But there's also, let's call it a metaphoric or a meta layer of how you want to define impact. And impact for me personally is outcome. So, and there is a difference between output and outcome. So if I would have a talk today here, I brought 200 slides, then 200 is the output. And if you as the consumer, listener, or person in the audience thinks out of the 200 slides, only 2 slides are valuable for you, then this is the outcome. So the output is 200, the outcome is 2. And my job is to minimize the output in comparison to the outcome, or other way around, to maximize the outcome, which is generating and received added value for the consumer or for the customer. And I can measure this in dollars or euros or whatever, but I can sometimes also not measure this. If you find my talk today valid for you, helpful, whatever, then you think, okay, the 1 hour I invested to listen to Chris and Nadiem was valuable to me. It generated impact. So whatever impact then means for you, maybe you have a great idea today, or you take some of the advices or whatever. So then we generated outcome for the audience. And I think on a meta layer, our job is always to generate outcome instead of output. And on a technical layer, we should create impact to measure KPIs, keep track of steering metrics, and making sure that we're really driving the needle on leading or lagging indicators.
Yeah, spot on. I think on that area, because we could dive deep on something else, but I don't think we'll give it time to do it justice. So absolute pleasure speaking, Nadiem. I know we could have talked for more. I'm really looking forward to seeing your product more, seeing where you go. I'm sure it's going to be a big hit, and I know it's so big a hit that even my team are talking to you tomorrow about it as well. So. I know they like it as well. So, but for the audience, how could they find out more about your product, find out more about you, find out where you're going to be speaking next?
So number one, feel free to, so you find everything on mindfuel.ai. So there is everything about the product and all about our company. You can give it a shot for a free trial if you want to learn out more. Or you can send us a message through our website. That's number one. Number two, feel free to add me on LinkedIn at any time. I typically promote where I talk in the next, so where my next events and meetings are. Right now, I actually looking forward for a little summer break, at least in August, and then in autumn I will be on different conferences again, speaking there.
Yeah, so I'm taking August, not off work totally, but I'll try a week off at least anyway. But yeah, we've got no more conferences till September is our big day to London. Will you be at Big Day to London? Coming there? I
plan to be there. Yes. So most probably I will be hanging out there as well. Yeah.
Cool. Well, we'll probably have a panel, and probably it'd be great to have you on there. I think Francie's just put a link on there, so thank you very much. All right. Well, we'll call that a wrap. Thank you very much, Nadiem. Pleasure chatting. I hope the audience liked it. Romana, thanks for your comments. Val, hope to see you again soon. And who else? I think they also had another one from anyway, I've missed it. So hello to everyone. Anyway, I will speak to you. I'll speak to you again soon. And I'm not sure who's on the show next week, but we'll get the advertising out for that soon. But thanks again.
Thank you very much for having me, Chris. Have a good one. Yeah. Cheers. Goodbye.
Bye. It's in this.